Hey, this is Mark A. Altman, and if you're a fan of this podcast, you already know the 50-year mission is definitive oral history of Star Trek, and Secrets of the Force will tell you everything you want to know about the history of Star Wars. But what you probably don't know is Ed Gross and I have a new book coming out this July. They Shouldn't Have Killed His Dog, the complete, uncensored, ass-kicking oral history of John Wick, Gun Fu, and the new age of action. Coming from St. Martin's in hardcover, digital, and audio. You can order it today.
Welcome back to the 430 movie. We got our expert programmers here to curate fantasy theme weeks of classic films.
From 1998, film directed by Steven Soderbergh called Out of Sight.
Yes!
Soderbergh directs it with such a sort of confident, self-assured style.
Lex Luthor in Superman.
What is it about Gene Hackman that...
His performance, it's off the charts, but still in reality. Fiendishly gifted.
1981 Sam Raimi opus, The Evil Dead.
Oh, yes. Right? Fine choice.
Sam Raimi invented entirely new ways to get shots that should not have been possible with the amount of money that he did not have.
Charade.
Yeah. Oh, so
directed by Stanley Donen. It's a textbook screenplay. It's just effortless, and there's not a wrong note in this movie. Can't say enough great things about it. We'll be back next Friday with an all-new episode of the 430 movie, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Join us now for the 430 movie.
The 430 Movie Podcast is available weekly wherever you listen to podcasts and on the free Electric Now app. Download it today.
Hello and welcome to Best Movies Never Made, the podcast where we talk about interesting and infamous movies that never made it to or through production. Most of the time, the movies you're trying to make don't get made.
Like 4 of them may happen, 1 of them may happen, none of them may happen, and I'll be attached to 3 more things by end of summer.
Turn the script into something resembling like Unforgiven with Conan.
Yeah.
Sadly, the rights expired and the whole thing just like went away overnight.
New episodes will be available every other Monday. We won't see you at the movies.
Best Movies Never Made, as featured in Entertainment Weekly, is available wherever you listen to podcasts and on the free Electric Now app. Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is DAREN DOCHTERMAN, and we are the Inglorious
Treksperts. And the human adventure continues. It continues. Because again and again. Yeah, there is no comparison.
Thrusters ahead, Mr. Sulu. Take us out. Mr. Spock, every minute brings that object closer to Earth. I need you.
I am convinced we are inside a living machine.
Shall I go to battle station, sir?
Insatiable curiosity.
Spock, you haven't changed a bit. You're just as warm and sociable as ever. I hope we got this one off to a good start. I hope so, too.
And, you know, we weren't scheduled to do a new episode this week, but honestly, the Star Trek The Motion Picture Director's Edition just dropped on Paramount Plus this week. There's been a lot of excitement and talk and chatter. And it seemed only appropriate that we talk about what a great week in the history of Star Trek this has been for real fans of the franchise.
Not real fans is a loaded term.
I mean dedicated. I don't mean real. Like, I mean, everyone's a fan, whatever you like.
Yes.
I'm not saying that people aren't. There's real and not real. I'm saying real. I mean, in the sense of dedicated, love this franchise, committed to this franchise,
and who have carried the torch for years and years and years.
Yeah. Exactly. Well put. But because whatever you're a fan of, that's what you're a fan of. It doesn't mean we all have to agree about everything. So anyway, this was such an exciting week. It began on Monday with a very, very special screening at Paramount, in the Paramount Theater, in which Dave Fine, Mike Matessino, and yourself, Darren Dochterman, lifted the curtain. Well, figuratively, there was no curtain.
We parted the clouds.
You parted the clouds and revealed the Star Trek: The Motion Picture Director's Edition only hours before it debuted on Paramount Plus. And I have to say, Darren, look, if regardless of your involvement or not, I was absolutely blown away. I loved it. I was so excited. I really feel the 2002 Director's Edition for DVD was a proof of concept. This is the movie. This to me is, I've always really, if I threw on Star Trek, I often would still throw on the theatrical version. I now feel this is the version of the movie that is the definitive version of the film. It's spectacular.
Well, I certainly think so. And that certainly was the wishes of Robert Wise.
Yeah.
When we were able to do it with him in 2000 and 2001, it was a great weight lifted off his shoulders to be able to finally release a finished version of the rough cut that was the theatrical edition.
Yeah.
And I think that, wherever he is now, I hope that, and I think that he is pleased with the outcome. And I'm certain he would be pleased with the great response it's getting.
Yeah, but I was really sorry to hear that you won't be involved with the producer's edition, which is Gene Roddenberry's cut of the film, which will include 15 minutes more of Aaliyah in the sonic shower. That is really disappointing.
As the great Mr. Spock once said, there are always possibilities.
Could you imagine? It's so interesting. I'd love to see Gene's cut of this movie, given that he was constantly rewriting Harold Livingston.
Yeah.
And had very different. I think Gene would be very pleased with this, because this, more than any version of the movie, really feels like an episode writ large.
Yeah, well, though it's called the Director's Edition, it definitely is Gene Roddenberry's edition too, because he nursemaided this project through hell and high water, and he finally got it done. And I think it's a great tribute to his Star Trek. It is faithful in spirit and tone to the original series, but it's writ large.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great, we talked about this before, but it's a great new beginning to Star Trek as it evolved into a new level of being.
I have to say, I've seen a lot of Star Trek movies in that beautiful Paramount Theater, but the new, and I don't know if people can appreciate as much on Paramount Plus. I mean, you do have that gorgeous HDR, the deep blacks and everything, but to see it on that enormous screen, that the sound mix and the color timing on this alone, if you would change nothing else, would be spectacular. I mean, the sound is so good and so clean and so perfectly mixed. A hint of Foley, a little bit. You can really hear the sound effects. The music is brilliantly mixed and powerful. Jerry's music has never sounded better. The fact that you guys went and into the original ADR tracks and came up with lines of dialogue that had never been put in the movies. There was no time. Some of the Chekhov dialogue. I just think it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It's a great thing. And again, that process began 21 years ago when we completely, redid the sound mix and included a bunch of those sound effects that were intended to be used. But there again, the ability over the past 21 years to find those original stems and masters and unused ADR is truly amazing. And Mike Mendocino and Bruce Botnick went back and remixed all the music from the original master tapes. And it just sounds amazing. And you know what? I have to think that if we had been given the opportunity to do it in high def back in 2000, I think that's where it would have ended. And I think in a way, we were given a great gift of being able to do it in the future with all these modern methods of making it look and sound the best it possibly could.
That's such a great point, because for years, everybody talked about how short-sighted it was not to do it in high def. But in retrospect, that would have been it. It's sort of like when they redid the original effects on the original series, which you could argue was too soon and too cheap and all this other stuff. And now they'll never go back and redo it with the technology that exists today. And you had 20 years to think about what you would do differently. And I just feel like a lot of those choices were clearly the right choices. I mean, the Enterprise turning around in VOYAGE is it's unbelievable. And I mean, the mix,
it's a tiny thing.
It's a tiny thing.
It's something that you don't notice the first time watching the film, because everything's sort of coming at you at once, and it doesn't give you time to think about the logic, quote, of what's happening in the film. But once you see the latest and final version, you see that it all makes sense now.
Absolutely.
For the first time.
And that's another thing I loved about seeing it on the big screen. And people have the chance to do that with the Fathom screenings coming up later this year. The trip through VOYAGE.
Captain, I am now quite convinced that all of this is VOYAGE. That we are inside a living machine. Ilea. The sensor must contain some special meaning. I must try to mind meld with it.
Which is more than anything why people would label it the motionless picture back in the day, is so spectacular. What you guys did, working with, Doug Trumbull's original brilliance, is incredible. It is on par with moments in 2001, which was clearly a huge influence on this movie.
Absolutely.
And it's really, it pulls you in between Jerry's music and the brilliant sound effects. And I was just amazed. I remember coming out of the theater and I saw our good friend of the show, Rob Burnett. And he was equally just blown away. And everyone, it was such an interesting evening, because it really was an evening of Treksperts, not just us, but of Trekspertise, I should say. All the leading figures in Trekspertise, because they're not all Treksperts.
All the professional Trek fans who have made a career on their own and who are successful, each and every one of them, and who are also Star Trek fans. It was really an amazing gathering, and I don't think we're ever going to see that again.
No, absolutely not, because there's nothing that would bring us all together, like Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which we all have such a love for. I mean, I spent, thanks to you, I never really spent a lot of time with James Cawley, right? Mm-hmm. And
the owner of the Star Trek original series set tour in Ticonderoga, New York.
And we spent a bunch of time together after the screening, and it was such a delight. I mean, he's such a great guy and such a huge fan, and what he's done for to preserve the original series and the brilliance of its production design and art direction and everything through the studio tour. So it was great to spend time with James. Obviously, our good friend Rob Burnett was there. Jeff Bond, who wrote the art of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, with Gene Kazicki. They were both there with bells on, or in the case of Jeff Bond, he was dressed as number six
from The Prisoner.
I'm not quite sure how it fit into the theme, but it was cool. And I had him do that little circle thing that they do by any other, be seeing you. But I was afraid in the picture, people think sometimes it was like a QAnon supporter or something.
My goodness. But
he was doing the Patrick McGowan by any other name thing. And I'm trying to think, there were a lot of people who were involved with the film originally. Of course, Mike Okuda and Denise were there, and Doug Drexler, a lot of previous guests on the show. But, longtime fans of Star Trek, who were there, from the very beginning. And so many people that want to be Tony Timpone from, not Tony Timpone, Tony, Trek movie guy, Tony Montana, Tony,
Tony,
Anthony Pascal.
Tony
Pascal. So he was there. He was giddy. And just so many, Larry Nemechek, so many people who have.
Dave Rossi was there.
The great Dave Rossi. So great to see Dave. We love Dave. And he was thrilled, and he'd gone through this, with the original series doing the effects. But again, he kind of was in that situation you were many years ago. Not enough time, not enough technology, not enough money, and just did the best he could. And some great work came out of it. And
not to tell any secrets, but we were still in the same boat this time.
Yeah, I know. And that's why, look, whatever quibbles people have, and I'm not going to. Look, there are two little things that I didn't like. Two little tiny, who cares? The sum is greater than the whole of its part. And if there's not something that you can nitpick, then obviously you're not watching carefully enough. But I mean, the reality is it's so sensational.
The reality is it should never have happened.
It should have never happened, right? It's a miracle that it happened.
The odds against it are infinitesimal.
20 years. You guys have been going up this hill trying, like Sisyphus. We'd get close, and I can say this, I didn't sign an NDA. It got close, and then it wouldn't happen. And it got close, and then it wouldn't happen. We hear rumors, it's finally going to happen. Never happened. So, whatever you think, all these people are like, Paramount Plus, I got to spend $6. It's like, how much you pay for a movie ticket?
You know what? Thank heaven for Paramount.
Damn right. I don't have a lot of great things to say about it, but in this case, absolutely. They stepped up, they did the right thing, and they finally put it on the homepage. So that's great. Good for them. Yep. And good for them to support the archival value of Star Trek. Because what people don't really know is, look, years ago, for the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, I did this great screening series at the Cinematheque. I'm not sure why. I was tying in with my book, I think it was. So we screened a ton of Star Trek, and it was great. But we wanted, obviously, to screen Star Trek: The Motion Picture because it's a remarkable film. It's a very important film. And that print, I couldn't even watch it. It was so pink. It had gone, the colors and everything.
It was shameful.
It was embarrassing. In fact, people wanted their money back. That was one of those screens. So now there exists a 4K version of the picture that can be projected. And it looks so good. And there's not all this DNR where you scrubbed all the grain or anything. Yeah. It looks like film.
It looks like a film. It looks like the best version of the film that has ever existed.
And that's what I loved also about the majority of the visual effects, where you recomposited some of the original 65 millimeter elements rather than trying to recreate things in CG. It looks so good. It looks so good, and it's like, honestly, I don't care about like the little minutia, like, in 1979, we didn't have this or this didn't matter. It's like, I care about the whole thing. And it was like, you told the story. That's all I care about. Do you tell this? Is the story better? Are the characters deeper, more rich? Yes, they are.
That's one of the great things about the director's edition cut, is that it does fulfill the need that the actors complained about for so many years, that it wasn't about the characters. Well, it is. It just wasn't cut together correctly. And, Leonard Nimoy was very upset with the theatrical version. And for years, he badmouthed it. Rightly so, because it cut out whole sections of Spock's transformation in the film, which is really what the film is about.
Yes.
It's
his
about
evolution.
His Spock's evolution and the characters that go along with him.
Why, it's Mr. Spock.
Spock.
Commander, if I may.
And that's what's so important about this movie that people have missed because it wasn't there. So I think that, when Leonard saw it back in 2001, he had very nice things to say about it. And I think that it sort of fixed those problems that he had with it.
And that's such a great sequence. That whole handheld sequence where we're basically seeing everyone on the bridge, and then we find the camera finds Spock, and he turns
away from us,
and he turns around and reveal the fact that he has tears in his eyes for V'ger. Yeah. It's gorgeous, and I have to say, it really comes across great. One of my problems with the movie originally was the fact that they didn't have wild walls for the bridge. That so everything was very tight. I mean, that Star Trek: The Motion Picture almost was a bottle show. There's so much to. So I'm like, it felt could feel very claustrophobic. What came across in this is how great those split diopter shots are, and how really well directed the movie is. That it's not. This is not something like the TV show. I mean, the way that
it's not just establishing close up.
And very few of those, and very few over the shoulders. There are a couple, but for the most part, he does these split diopter shots where he keeps everything in focus. And normally, with a normal, lens, you would have what's in the foreground in focus and the background be out of focus, or vice versa. But he keeps everything in focus. So he has these really interesting two shots. It's really an ambitious, interesting film technically. And the way that the late David Klein shot it, and the way Richard Klein, right? And why do I say David Klein? Who's David Klein?
I don't know. Maybe he's a salesman or something. Yeah, David Klein, but Richard Klein, and of course, the way it's beautifully directed by David Wise. But speaking of which, was Bob Wise's son, who was the first AD, Doug Wise, at the screening? I don't think so.
Oh, okay, but Glenn Campbell was there. Not Glenn the singer.
Campbell was there. Yeah, no, Glenn Campbell, who worked on the original movie and photographed a lot of the elements that we wound up finding and recompositing. He was there with his girlfriend, Tammy Klein, and they were just ecstatic about it. And Glenn was very sweet and told me how much he enjoyed it, which that means a lot to me. The people who put in so much horrific work back then that didn't get either recognized or even understood, but it's so great that I've become friends with a lot of people who worked on the original, and my admiration for them is boundless after dealing with some of the stuff that we had to on this project. The fact that they got anything released in 1979 at all is truly a miracle.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not a special effects nerd, so some of the minutia, I just don't care about. But I mean, I care about the characters, and I care, and it's like how it affects me emotionally.
It should be about the impact of the whole thing,
and it's so powerful. It's so great. And I just, like I said, if in the past, if I was throwing on a movie, I probably would still throw on the theatrical. That's just me. But now this will be the version that I want to watch. This takes the best of theatrical, best of the ABC cut. I mean, I like to have them all for the archival purposes, but this is the version that I want to watch. I mean, how could you not? It sounds so much better. It looks so much better. Yeah. And I think the choice is, look, obviously under the aegis of Robert Wise, who explained what he liked and wanted to accomplish, 20 years ago.
obviously there's a reason that he was a brilliant cutter. I mean, this is the man who cut Citizen Kane. And, his instincts are completely validated. Yeah. And we all know the stories, how there wasn't enough time and there wasn't an ability to have a test screening or anything else.
No test screenings. And they basically had to take the visual effects which were arriving wet on the reels and cut it in and ship it out.
I mean, the funny thing is, this month, Paramount Plus is doing The Offer about the making of The Godfather, which is a great story. It's an amazing story behind The Godfather, and incredible that it happened, incredible that it was a success, and that the movie is one of the great movies of all time. There is a movie in the history of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It is so remarkable. What it went through, the Herculean efforts to get it to the screen initially, and that it even held together remotely at the time is remarkable. I mean, everything from the apogee to, and Doug Trumbull having to come in to replace Robert Abel, but the fights between Roddenberry and Harold Livingston, and getting Harold Livingston to keep quitting and coming back, and Katzenberg using this to build his bona fides at the company. And it's just, there's so much going on there. And then the cast, and then the whole way that, when their contract provisions cut in, where they could start weighing in on everything. Yeah. It's really, an incredible story. And I think that it would make a phenomenal MOW.
Oh my God.
Or miniseries.
It would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but who would play Shatner? I don't know. You can't find anybody. There's nobody who can capture that amount of that charisma in a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Might have to do it as a CG animated show.
Right. What is it? What is that thing? That technology? And I have to say, look, compare this to the Star Wars special editions, where, I mean, you look at when those were done in the 90s, those effects, don't hold up compared to the, miniature and optical work that was done in 77, which is so much better. I mean, the decisions that were made were just so ill-conceived. Whereas on this, it's just like, everything is there for a reason. It makes sense. It's just, there's not like giddy little, weird little like diversions and,
Not at all to denigrate the hard work that people did on the Star Wars special editions. But as you say, the intent is different. The intent was on the Star Wars special editions to basically develop technology to use on the prequels.
Yep.
And have Fox pay for it.
But even if you go by what Lucas said, which was, I wanted to do things that I couldn't accomplish in 77. The technology wasn't there, right? That's not what Star Trek: The Motion Picture was. It was to do what could have been done then, but there wasn't the time because of the blind booking and being locked in the theaters on December 7th. Even if the movie had been pushed to summer, six months later, the need for this would have been moot.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and again, the intent was never to spice it up and make it palatable for modern audiences. Not at all.
No.
And if people are looking at it that way, they're going to be disappointed, frankly, because it still is a movie from its time. It looks better than it ever has, but it's not intended to be, a whiz-bang roller coaster of a movie. It just never was that, and it shouldn't be.
It is Star Trek. That's the one thing. This is the very DNA of Star Trek. It's about people who are struggling, Spock struggling with his emotions and ultimately discovering, a humanity, through what's going on with V'ger.
It's the representation of the best Earth and other planets have to offer, going out, looking at unknown things, discovering, trying to understand.
Why have 2 carbon units entered V'ger?
They want to contact V'ger.
Ilea. Does V'ger object to the presence of the 2 carbon units?
The carbon units are of no consequence. V'ger will determine their purpose.
Their purpose is to survive.
That is also V'ger's purpose.
You said V'ger's purpose. was to find and join with the Creator.
That is how he will survive. I wish to continue my observations.
Yeah.
That's what Star Trek is.
And this big sci-fi mystery. And just, Kirk, he doesn't want to scan the thing because it could be, interpreted as a hostile act. He's using what he learned about what Epsilon 9 did. It has all these great, cool stuff with,
And again, no villain.
No villain, yeah.
It's an antagonist. It's something that we don't understand. Why is it everything we don't understand always call it antagonist? But it's heavier Star Trek, yes, but it also is more enlightened Star Trek because it asks the audience to go with it and experience what the crew is.
V'ger is a child. I suggest you treat her as such.
A child?
Yes, Captain, a child. Evolving, learning, searching, instinctively needing.
Needing what? Spock, this child is about to wipe out every living thing on Earth. Now, what do you suggest we do? Spank it.
It knows only that it needs, Commander. But like so many of us, it does not know what.
The carbon units know why the Creator has not responded.
Disclose the information.
Not until V'ger withdraws the devices orbiting the third planet.
Captain, I'm losing Starfleet. Interference from V'ger.
Kirk unit, disclose the information. Why has the Creator not responded?
No. Secure all stations. Clear the bridge. Clear the bridge, Captain? That was the order, Mr. Sulu. Clear the bridge. Aye, sir.
Your child is having a tantrum, Mr. Spock.
Yeah. And I'm glad you don't give in to this desire by certain aspects of the fandom. Like they just want everything in there. They want every square foot of film just dumped in there, because obviously the whole Sulu showing Ilia the helm doesn't have any place in this movie. Why would an expert helmswoman need to be instructed in how the helm worked? She wouldn't have been hired to work on the bridge if she wasn't great at what she did. It's the same reason you took the thruster pack instructions out. Spock doesn't know how to use a thruster pack. So as much as I like that whole thing in the theatrical because it's kind of cool and everything, but it's for the audience, but for Spock, it makes no sense.
Right.
And so many of these other scenes that were cut for very good reasons. The stuff that's back is back for a reason.
Right.
And often
and a lot of the lines that were cut that people love and remember, and it's imprinted on their brains. A lot of those lines were there just in case there was no visual effects to show it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And, like poor Sulu saying the new screen's held. Well,
right.
We just saw that they did. And it's okay. We know they held because you're still here talking.
Yeah.
So it's all fine.
Yeah. That's so funny. That's such a good point. It's like, okay, well, we didn't have the special effects. We have to say it because the special effects may not have been ready. We may not have seen it. That's such a good point.
And of course, Chekhov saying, we're out of it.
Right.
Duh. We know. But these are those things that Robert Wise himself was very specific about. And he knew what was necessary. And he told us how to do it.
Here's the glorious thing, right? We've seen this movie literally, I'm sure, over 100 times, right? If not more than that, maybe 1,000. I don't know. So of course this stuff is imprinted on our brain, and when we don't hear it, but as time goes on and this becomes the version, less and less will you think about that. But the great thing is, unlike Star Wars, where they're trying to pretend that, I will say, the real version, the original versions don't exist. Right. You're not trying to supplant it. You're saying, no, you can watch the original. You can watch, some of us can still watch the ABC cut if they want. I don't know why, unless you like looking at soundstage walls. And then there's this. So nobody's trying to erase the past, and that's the thing that always bothered me about Star Wars. It's like, if there are people who want to watch the special edition, that's great. But,
absolutely.
But trying to, just erase what existed before. I mean, that was the thing I loved about what Charlie and Warner Brothers did with the Blade Runner Blu-ray set. Everything's available to you. So it's your choice. You can watch what, Ridley Scott considers the definitive version, which I'm not sure I agree. I kind of like the theatrical version of Blade Runner,
I do too. But we have the choice.
We have the choice. Exactly. It's all about choices. Now, we got a bunch of comments. I want to read you just a few, and I have not edited them, so I'm reading them. Okay. So I don't know what they're going to say because I've read them, but it requires effort. I don't really have a team of people here to prepare the show for me.
We have no team.
I got no team. So it's like I don't really do research. I'm not Steve Melching. So here we are.
This is the time for individual achievement.
So let's see what we got here. Tom Kuchar on Facebook says, "Just finished watching, was gobsmacked. I was so tempted to find every little alteration, but was just pulled in by the cinematic beauty of the visuals and sound mix. Truly amazing. Many thanks to DRD and all the DE crew for the gift to all of us fans, as well as preserving Robert Wise's legacy." That's beautiful. I totally agree with that. Christopher Corin says, "Such joy captured in this beautiful image. I'm so happy for you, Darren. Thank you for keeping the faith and delivering this miracle." Well, I knew you would want it. It's been a long time since you delivered a baby. I think we got this one off to a good start.
Well, I just also want to say that I love getting personal accolades, but I am reminded every time that it was absolutely a team effort led by Dave Fine, Mike Mattasino, and myself, and we had an amazing group of people. So while I love the personal shout outs, I just want to make sure that everyone shares.
But they know you. You're like a friend. You're in their car. You're in their house. You're in their bedroom every week, right?
Sure.
So they know you. They don't know those guys.
Yeah.
Plus, you have the best personality of those three people. So
I don't know about that, but
so
certainly the most hammy.
So they feel like they know you. But of course, it's good to share the share. And of course, Adam Mojo Leibowitz, who was at the screening. Great to see Mojo. I haven't seen him in a long time. I wish I'd gotten to spend more time with him. I didn't really get to see. But by the time the party was over, I was exhausted. And I'm not as young as I used to be. And so I think around 12:30, I had to call it quits. But but I'm sure Mojo was there till 3 a.m. But whatever. That's.
I'm glad everybody had a good time, and that's what it was for.
The Treksperts Roundtable. We need to plan a podcast episode with both groups of Treksperts. I don't know who that is, to discuss Darren's incredible work on this 4K masterpiece. Both groups, is that you and me, or is that Ashley? I don't know.
I think the Treksperts Roundtable is another podcast.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay, got it. Oh, that's cool. Well, good for them. They're violating our trademark, but that's okay. I appreciate the support and I wish them well. That's awesome. Any listeners of this podcast are welcome. Let's see. Paul Berza, did we just see the beginnings of a new life form? Yes, you did. A lot of congratulations. I'm going to skip over. Mark Zutkoff. Just finished watching a Paramount. Magnificent restoration. Loved it. Congrats to Darren and the entire team who worked on it. I also see team. It's not the time for individual achievement. It's team. I also like that some line readings from the theatrical cut, which were changed to alternate versions for the 2000 edition, were restored. Just one thing, there are several mistakes in the closed captioning, which might wind up in the subtitles if they're not corrected. Okay, I've heard. So what?
We know, and they're
being fixed.
People who have been responsible have been sacked.
Oh, there you go.
That's that Monty Python and the Holy Grail explanation at the beginning of the movie.
Some of the lines don't match the spoken dialogue, like DeFalco's heading, sir. Well, DeFalco, lucky she could get a word out.
The ex-Mrs. Shatner was certainly riveting on screen.
Someone at Paramount should review that. Okay. Otherwise, well done. By the way, speaking of, one person I didn't give a shout out to who deserves it more than anybody is Eddie Egan. A frequent guest on our show, who was publicist on many Star Trek movies. He has been a proselytizer, a keeper of the flame for this movie.
Since the beginning.
Since the beginning. He knew what this could be. I love Eddie Egan. I just think he was great to me as a kid, and he had no idea who the fuck I was. And, he's been great to us on the show, and I just love his passion for Star Trek. And it comes from, such a place of deep love on his part. And he's the best. He's so great.
So glad to see him there on Monday night.
He loved it.
Yeah.
He loved it. And you know what? That's why I don't care. Some of these idiots on Facebook, they don't even know what it takes to make a movie. And, all they care about is their little minutia nonsense. Somebody like Eddie Egan validating it, that's all you need. You know what? Eddie Egan and I liked it. Who cares what anybody else thinks?
Look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. And
that's my opinion, too.
That's my opinion, too.
Let's see. Russell Myers. Oh, because this is the picture of you, me, and Scott Mance, the other Trekspert. No, Trek enthusiast, excuse me. It's the metamorphosis of motion pictures. Yeah. By the way, I did Scott Mance's podcast. I hope you're not jealous. He asked me.
That's fine.
Yeah, no. And it was,
you go and do Scott Mance's podcast.
He asked, and so I normally don't like to do other people's podcasts because
that's okay. I had dinner with him last night. So.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's good. So he's probably grooming you to do his podcast.
No doubt.
So I did by any other name. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time.
Oh, good.
And his co-host Scott Morris is a very nice guy, and I enjoyed it. Although they had me on for it was 2 hours. I'm like, it's like they squeezed me in for a morning podcast. I'm like, okay, and then and it was it just went on and on. I'm like looking at my watch.
You just kept talking about Rojan.
Yeah, that's what they are. More like Barbara Boucher. Okay, let's see. Hank Drake Ferrer watching now, looks and sounds fab. And there's so many other comments, but I don't know how to access this stuff on Facebook. I literally don't. Sometimes it's a message, sometimes it's a comment. I don't freaking know. But there's a ton on Twitter too, and I don't want to go through all of them. But let me just see if I can find a couple of quick comments from our listeners about this wonderful achievement, because you deserve to take the bow, my friend. You deserve to take the bow. Let's see. This is nice. Pop culture preacher. Something I've always truly appreciated about the Star Trek franchise is that when they do restorations, they do so in the service of story. The original series and motion picture are a chef's kiss. Thanks to all of you in keeping original Trek fresh and fetching. That's a great comment. I want to point out that is a really excellent point, because when they did the original effects, that was Dave Rossi, Mike, and Denise. These people know and love Star Trek. They are passionate fans. They understand it. And they did everything they could to protect it and do it right, and were relentless to get blood from a stone, right? And it's the same thing with the motion picture. You and Dave and Mike, you love Bob Wise and you love Star Trek. And you did right by it. There was never it was never about you. You guys all sublimated your egos, to do right by Bob.
We tried to live by the method of the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Whose glory do you do this for? The movies or yourselves? It's all about the movie.
Because there's a lot of things you could have done that you didn't. And Easter eggs and shit that you could have thrown in, which you didn't, because that's not what Bob Wise would have done. And that's why this is
fair. There's a couple Easter eggs in there, but
are there? No, okay.
But he went along with them, so
they were subtle, very subtle. So, by the way, David Landon, it has nothing to do with you. Just finished listening to the hour 25 interview with Harlan Ellison about the Star Lost. Great stuff that we recommended on last week's show. We were saying that if you're interested in the horrifying saga of the Star Lost, you should listen to Harlan on hour 25.
I put up a photo from the Star Lost on my Facebook page of John Colicos and Barry Morse in an episode together, and it's just one of those wonderful, goofy things that I really enjoy about that crazy show.
Well, it's like when you watch Alexander the Great and you see Shatner and Adam West and Joseph Cotten together.
The worlds colliding in front of your eyes.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. And You know, it was interesting last week's episode because, I know we didn't do Stargate, we didn't do The Expanse. Yeah. It was a long show. We'd just done a 4:30 movie, and it was like I was done, as you were. And there were a couple, but people really loved that we mentioned A Land of Lost. So I'm grateful that Steve brought that up. And there was
you got to remember the Stargate and The Expanse are a little after our time. We were going from a more looking from the past, and that's the reason for that. That's why
I don't know if I agree with that.
Stuff. Yeah, no, that's why we concentrated on the stuff from our childhood.
Well, it was more interesting because it was more esoteric. I think that Stargate and The Expanse are more. Plus, also, look, I know everyone loves The Expanse. I'm sure it's a great show. It's just wasn't my cup of tea. But so I didn't have much to say about it. And I've never watched Stargate. I've literally never watched Stargate.
We try not to talk about stuff that we don't understand.
Right, because there are other people who can talk about it.
Yeah. They can do it way better than we can.
By the way, I was talking how much I can't, I don't care about minutia, but I do love the fact that you fixed the rank insignias for Spock and McCoy at the end of the picture.
I got so many wonderful comments from that.
Yeah.
Spock and McCoy's jacket, for the last shot of them, they switched jackets. We don't quite know exactly why it happened. Maybe they were frustrated that there were too many takes of it. But that's the take that was used, and in the theatrical, Spock is wearing a green band and McCoy's wearing an orange. And now it's fixed.
Spock, did we just see the beginning of a new life form?
Yes, Captain. We witnessed a birth. Possibly a next step in our evolution.
I wonder.
Well, it's been a long time since I delivered a baby. And I hope we got this one off to a good start.
I hope so, too. I think we gave it the ability to create its own sense of purpose out of our own human weaknesses and the drive that compels us to overcome them.
And a lot of foolish human emotions, right, Mr. Spock?
Quite true, Doctor. Unfortunately, it will have to deal with them as well.
Interrogative from Starfleet. They're requesting damage and injury reports and complete vessel status.
Report 2 casualties. Lieutenant Ilea. Captain Decker.
Aye, sir.
Correction. They're not casualties. They are... List them as missing. Vessel status fully operational.
Aye, sir.
Mr. Scott, shall we give the Enterprise a proper shakedown?
I would say it's time for that, sir. Aye. We can have you back on Vulcan in 4 days, Mr. Spock.
Unnecessary, Mr. Scott. My task on Vulcan is completed.
Mr. Sulu, ahead warp 1.
Warp 1, sir.
Heading, sir.
Out there. That away.
It's for all time, which is fantastic. Yeah, it's just funny. I mean, I think I found out, I did not notice that when I watched the movie originally, but I think it was a creation convention, like 1981. They were showing it on videotape. And someone pointed out, they said, oh, look how the bands changed at the end. Wow, I never noticed that. Huh. And now I could never unsee it. And so the fact that you fixed it was like, was really cool. Yeah, but no, Scott loved it too. Scott, the man, Star Trek enthusiast. I think he liked it more than Metamorphosis. I don't know for sure, but he loved it, and it was great to see him so excited. And then what was really nice was our good friend Steve Asbell was there with his son, and Cliff Stevenson, the great Blu-ray DVD producer. He had his son. His son loved it, seeing it for the first time.
It's so funny that a bunch of our friends brought their kids, and the response was, holy cow, they really enjoyed it.
Yeah, my son's a fan of it.
That's like music from heaven. I mean, that means that there is hope, that the human adventure is just beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so great.
Well, it's great because, there's this mistaken impression that this movie is somehow slow. It's like all these people, we talked about this. Oh, the Batman is 3 hours, is too long. And it's like, Star Trek the Motion Picture. It's like, I wish Star Trek the Motion Picture was longer. If there was more and more.
I mean, you know what? Honestly, they get more story and pacing into 2 slightly plus hours than certain shows do in 6 hours episodes. So
yeah, you could say that.
Not saying anything specifically, but
yeah, no, absolutely. Somebody said watching a bit of the new 4K direct. This is Matt him watching a bit of the new 4K director's edition of Star Trek the Motion Picture and appreciating the shimmering font in the opening credits and the expansive mix to Jerry Goldsmith's score. Even the attack. Now this is, he said, even the attack on the birds of prey has lighting animation with real character to it. Now I have to say,
first, they aren't birds of prey.
That's what I couldn't help myself. It's Klingon battle cruisers. They're not birds of prey.
Klingon battle cruisers, Klingon heavy Katinga battle cruisers. And it's okay though. Welcome to the family.
No. Look, and I hate, being that guy, because I can't stand these like OCD people who are always, I don't mean that there's anything wrong with OCD. I mean, people, I'm using that as a term of explaining, like when they're focused on like the tiny minutia thing. It's just, I love those. I mean, I built that model kit. I love the freaking battle cruisers. And I hated, we all hate the fact that in Star Trek 3, they start calling Klingon ships birds of prey when it was the Romulan ship. So it's just a personal thing that rubs me the wrong way. Matt, it's awesome that you said that. I'm so glad you liked it. It's not a criticism. It's just one of those things that gets me crazy because I'm insane.
We will continue to try and educate people and not put them down.
Absolutely. We're definitely not. It was a thing on TV podcast says in the Gene Roddenberry producers edition, there will also be more of those love coaches from the novelization. You're absolutely right. In fact, that's who's this on the bridge? Oh, it's my love coach.
Oh my goodness.
That'd be great. We can find some ADR for that. Just so many nice comments. And it's nice to read all these nice things about you and the team. And this version of the picture. What was it like for you? So what was it like for you that night? Because nobody had seen this. You're there. All these wonderful people are there to celebrate. It's this thing you've been working on nonstop, super, for 8 months now or 20 years, depending on how you look at it.
Right.
What was it like for you?
To be honest, I couldn't get too excited about it. I was sort of very reserved and just hoping that everything would go well and people would like it and that it would be good enough, honestly, because it's a huge burden to carry for something that I loved so much as a 12-year-old and thought was the greatest example of Star Trek visually, story-wise and emotion-wise.
That simple feeling.
Yeah, it was a big weight. Because I just wanted it to be out there and okay. I wanted the baby to be fine.
Yeah.
But afterwards, just reading all these wonderful, messages from people, it makes me feel so much better. And I hope we gave it a good start.
Yeah, one of the big disappointments for me, my mother was in town. And of course, when as chronicled in Free Enterprise, when I went to see Star Trek the Motion Picture in 1979, the theater had some problems, I guess, when they screened The Warriors. So they weren't letting kids into the movies after 4:00 without an adult guardian. So when I tried to get into Star Trek the Motion Picture with my friends, we'd race there after school, after middle school. They wouldn't let us in. And I panicked. I'm like, nobody's going to keep me from seeing Star Trek the Motion Picture. So after I looked for an emergency exit, which I couldn't find, I went rushing to the Brooklyn Savings Bank, where I knew my mom would be coming home from work to deposit her paycheck long before ATMs, and begged her to take us to Star Trek the Motion Picture, which she did, much to her everlasting chagrin. But it was a wonderful thing she did. It was, obviously she knew how important this was to me. And it was so great of her to take us to see the movie. So, it just so happened she was here for my son's bar mitzvah for
that weekend.
So I said, do you want to come take me to Star Trek the Motion Picture again? Which she was going to do. And unfortunately, due to some things that transpired, she wasn't able to at the last second. And, but but it would have been so delightful. But she did give me a note. She said, please make sure that Mark is allowed into the Star Trek The Motion Picture screening.
Oh, my goodness. That's so great. Of course, it's not rated G for kids anymore.
I know. But fortunately, they did let me in. And the guest who I did bring was delighted because he got to come in her place and enjoyed the one of my executives at CW and he's a huge Star Trek fan and he loved it.
Awesome.
And he hadn't seen the director's edition, so he really enjoyed seeing this version of the picture.
It's so gratifying to hear that a bunch of people who had missed the director's edition on DVD back then have now been exposed to it, and it's such a great thing to see that they can now enjoy it. I just talked to my mom this morning, and she watched the film yesterday for the first time.
Wow. Did she like it?
She's,
Yeah, okay. I know.
She said she liked it. I can't imagine that it was as riveting to her as it is to me, certainly. But she said she enjoyed it, and she enjoyed watching the actors, and said that Bill Shatner looked great. And that it was nice to see all of them together, and she loved seeing my name at the end. Of the
I bet. Well, I remember when my mom took me. The one thing I remember when she took me to see when I was 12 or whatever it was when I saw Star Trek: The Motion Picture was I said, "So, Mom, what do you think?" She said, "I like when the ship goes fast and it has that rainbow behind it." I'm like, that's what you like.
So do we.
Yeah. So, and it was funny because I remember, she actually did love Star Wars. So when she went to see Empire, I said, "Oh, what do you think of Empire?" She said, "I love when the ship goes to fast and it leads into that, trail, hyperspace." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "So I was really disappointed that it didn't happen till the end, that the ship couldn't go really fast in the space tunnel." And I'm just like, that's what your takeaway from The Empire Strikes Back is. But yeah, it was in a way, it was disappointing that my mother couldn't come, but in a way, I think I dodged a bullet with the fact that she couldn't come, because I think I would be looking over and wondering if she's enjoying us. And like I said, I was able to bring somebody who actually really enjoyed it, and I was able to stay much later and sort of, because that's the other part of the experience that you don't get on Paramount Plus, is being around all these like-minded individuals, because we could all talk about it. And it's funny because one of our producers on the show, Peter Holmstrom, who our guest host on TREKSPERTS Briefing Room, an entirely different podcast, said, "I've never seen you look," because there was a great picture of you, me, and Scott. "I've never seen you look so happy." And I said, "Yeah, of course, because they had an abundance of non-sparkling bottled water," which is true. I mean, I have to give them credit. They had a ton of bottled water and a lot of candy. So what's not to be happy about? Star Trek, candy, non-sparkling bottled water. That's my...
They did a great job making everybody feel happy and well-fed and well aquafied.
Well aquafied, exactly. I was a little too well hydrated. I had to watch it again that night because I missed like a scene or two because I was too hydrated during the screening. But it's great that it's there and you can just watch it. And obviously this is not telling tales out of school, but the studio's announced it. There'll be the physical version coming out this fall. And it's funny because I did see on Twitter, somebody was saying, or it's a good friend. I don't know. It wasn't Collecting Trek, but it was one of our good followers, fans of the show. And they said, I don't know. Should I watch it on Paramount Plus, buy Paramount Plus, or should I get the physical media? And I said, it's not Sophie's choice. You can do both.
It's not an either or.
Watch it now and buy it later. That's what I'm doing. I mean, how many times have we bought Star Trek: The Motion Picture? Let's think.
Every time.
I didn't get it on Viewmaster, I have to tell you, but I had the photo novel. I bought it on VHS. I bought it on Laserdisc. I bought it the many times it was released on DVD. Laserdisc, of course. Then I bought it not only on a couple of times on Laserdisc, but then it was in the box set, which was Star Trek 1 through 5 when Star Trek 6 came out. Bought it many times on DVD. Bought it on Blu-ray, and then of course on 4K. So I don't know how many copies of Star Trek: The Motion Picture I own, and then how many times that set of all the movies was re-released. So, but it's a beautiful thing.
It's look. Part of the joy is buying it again for the first time.
I'm really looking forward to owning this because, again, I know you can't talk about what's going to be on the disc, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful. And I'm really excited about having the archival version of this for all time. And of course, seeing it in the theater again, because it's so much fun to see that on the big screen.
By the time this episode comes out, Fathom Events will have opened up tickets for the end of May. I think it's the 21st through 23rd, something like that. It's on their site. You can see when they're planning on their events. And you can sign up and get tickets and enjoy it in a theater for yourselves. And it's a great theater experience, and it's meant to be seen on the big screen, even though you'll enjoy it a lot on your amazing new 4K TV that you've bought specifically for this.
And you know how we say, you should support it to show, and then people go, I don't want to show give them a dime, with Paramount or whatever. It's like, the reality is we live in a world where everything is now algorithms and
money talks.
And the thing is, it's easier to track this stuff than ever. So they know immediately how much interest there is. They announced with Star Trek Director's Edition goes up, how many new subscribers they get instantly. They can tell whether or not from the analytics if it moved the needle. So if you want to see more original, if you'd like to see, a miniseries, about Kirk, if you want to see that, original or that kind of storytelling, that kind of cerebral, smart, character-driven Star Trek that we fell in love with, you need to support it. It's not, writing a tweet or a Facebook post is not going to get it done. You have to support it with your wallet. The fact is, they took a big risk on doing this. This was not an inconsiderable amount of money. And
believe it or not, risk is not their business.
And if you want to see more Star Trek, like Star Trek the Motion Picture, the kind of original series and Next Generation that we love, then you need to show that appreciation with your wallet. And, it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and sit there and badmouth everything and say, they're not going to get a dime. Well, you know what? Then that's fine. But then all you're going to see is stuff you probably don't like very much.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, look, big congratulations to you and to Mike and to Dave. Congratulations. Really a remarkable effort. And again, with the caveat of even with the time and the money you had, there's very little to say, if only, and obviously this is it. It's not like you're going to get to go back and do the 8K version, nor is there a need to.
It's up until we have the brain injection version. I think that we're good for at least a couple years.
Yeah. I mean, this is the best version of the movie since I read the photo novel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
since ever. The theatrical never looked this good.
No, not even close. That's what people don't understand. And look, again, the color timing, and it's like, I saw somebody who was like, well, the colors look different. Oh, yeah, they do, because it's properly
they look
color
right for the first time in ever.
And it's properly mixed. I mean, it's like, and even there, Bruce Botnick, who remixed the music, this was Jerry's, he mixed more of Jerry's music. He knew what Jerry would have wanted, so it's doing justice to the great Jerry Goldsmith. He also worked with the Doors, so that's extra points for Bruce Botnick. What a legend. We should have him on the show.
I think that would be great. I'll reach out to him and see.
Yeah, we should have him on the show. Next week we're gonna dip into the archives for Doug Grindstaff, who did the sound on the original Star Trek series. Really great, fascinating interview, because we know we haven't done any interviews in a while. We've done a lot of John, a lot of opinions,
a lot of chin wagging.
But we want to get back to doing some interviews too. And of course, I have to say, and I just want to take the second, if you're not listening to TREKSPERTS Briefing Room, Peter and Lisa are on fire right now. They did an episode on peak performance, not an episode you would necessarily be at the top of your list, with David Kemper. That is wonderful, and I highly recommend it. And if you're interested in Gene Roddenberry's drinking and working habits, David Kemper has some great stories. David's a real character. He was the showrunner on Farscape. I was lucky enough to have him on a panel about Wise Guy. He was the CBS executive on Wise Guy. back at Comic-Con a couple years ago, and he's terrific. They also had Hannah Louise Shearer from Where the Bow Breaks. They've had some great guests on the show. So even when Darren and I aren't on doing that show, and I know you love to listen to Darren and I because we're really interesting, but but Peter and Lisa are doing a terrific job, and I think you're missing out if you're a big Star Trek fan. You're missing out on, even if you're not going to watch the show, do the commentary. You can enjoy it without actually watching along. You don't have to watch along. You can just listen because, there's so much interesting stuff. And Peter, unlike me and Darren, actually prepares for these shows. So he has all these fun facts and interesting statistics. And he does a whole, introduction full of knowledge. And so I really, if it wasn't one of the shows that Darren and I were producers on, I would still listen to it. So it's the highest recommendation I can give it. But Darren, what a week for Star Trek. What a week for you. What a week for fans of the original movies and series to celebrate. It's hard to believe this day came.
Truly. Almost 43 years since the original was released. And it's a newborn this week.
How can we still be 29 years old? And yet it's the 43rd anniversary of film we saw in a theater.
I'm still 20 years old. You're an old man.
Yeah, but
that's a Star Trek quote for all of you out there who didn't remember.
By the way, this week also is Mission Star Trek or Mission
in Chicago.
In Chicago, and I just have to say, because I know he listens to the podcast. I know EXO is doing some really great figures and stuff. But come on, where's the ILEA? Enough with the Voyager figures already. Who cares? I know everybody's like, oh, shut up, Mark. We love Voyager. Okay, that's great. Good for you. But where is the ILEA figure? I want an ILEA figure.
That figure no longer functions.
Plus I want, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy in motion picture outfits. Yeah. It's like
I know we're getting Spock. I think we might be getting Kirk too.
Well, let's get Kirk. Come on. It's the greatest Star Trek captain of all time. Should be more Kirk action figures. Right? Am I right or am I right? I'm right.
Darn right.
Yeah, that's right.
And 6 scale Kirk and Scotty in a 6 scale travel pod. That's what I want.
That would be amazing.
So that we can walk around and truly make the 12-hour long trip around the Enterprise.
I wonder if that convention is going to be any good.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it'll be fun for everybody who attends.
We'll have to ask superfan Anne-Marie Siegel.
And Dave Fine will be there giving a presentation and screening the director's edition.
But you're from Chicago. Why aren't you there?
Just didn't work out that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I had no interest in going, to be honest. I had no interest in going. I
don't want to go anywhere that I'm not invited.
Well, that's what I said. They hired me as a consultant for the one in New York. I had a good experience there. It was really good.
Yeah, and you did a great job for them.
I did a great job for them, and they didn't ask anything. They didn't invite us to Chicago. So, you know what?
That's fun.
I would have loved to have some, Portillo's while I was there. That would be a reason to go. Yeah. But we're really looking forward. We can't announce it, but let's put it this way. Assuming the pandemic continues to abate, we have some very interesting convention appearances coming up later this year, which we'll be announcing soon.
And I'm sure people who are riding around in scooters are really
targeted in their targeted computer.
They're lining up the targets right now.
Just when I said we're out of it. Damn it. I've been targeted again for...
the new shins held.
Oh, my God. Someone at the screening, I forget who it was, said, there was somebody was in a wheelchair. They said, Mark, you better move away. You better get... Yeah, I was very gratified, actually, by how many people came up at the screening. All my kidding aside now, I'll get serious. How many people came and said what huge fans of the podcast they are?
Oh, that's great.
They mentioned the books too, but let's forget the books for a second. They mentioned what huge fans they are of the podcast. So
forget the books. What have you done with Mark?
I'm just saying, the books don't involve you.
You are not of the body.
And this is all about you. This is all about your big night, like Stanley Tucci.
That's right.
But that was really nice. A lot of people, a lot of people. Neil Bulk was there.
Sure.
The boys from La La Land were there. I mean, I could keep going. I mean, there's so many great great Trek enthusiasts that were assembled for, it was like I said, Treksperts assemble.
Yeah.
It was
really
great.
We had over 400 men and women there.
Almost the entire crew.
That's the size of the Enterprise crew. So they filled the theater, and it was so great to have everybody there.
I know. We almost had we could have done the rec deck sequence live.
Yeah.
It would have been great.
That's all we know about it.
Viewer off. I told you, I didn't even mind the second viewer off being gone this time. It was sort of seamless, and it was nice. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It's the movie's freaking great. You guys did an amazing job. That isn't one of my 2 quibbles. So I know, who cares? Who cares? It's great. And I think the reaction has been 99% positive, with a few stick in the muds who have, and it's not just, the stick isn't only in the mud. The stick is somewhere else too.
It's fine.
Well,
you take the good, you take the bad, you bring them.
Look,
on.
I tell you,
of life.
If I know something's good, I don't even read the reviews. I don't care. I mean, it's like sometimes like a publisher will send me, or the network will send me reviews or something. I'll read them, but I don't read reviews. It's like, who cares? It's like, if I know something, if I stand by something, and often, if it's something, that, you don't have enough time, you don't have enough money, you did the best you can. Who cares? You do the best you can.
I'm very happy with the amount of reviews that have come up on it. And we've been sending those to the studio. And I think the studio is very happy with the results too. So
they should be.
It's a wonderful thing.
And now on to Star Trek V. But that's me speaking. There's now don't start posting. Oh, the rumor mill has it that they're doing Star Trek V next. That's me making a joke. Okay, that's a little joke.
It's just a joke. It's just a humorous story with a climax.
Well, Darren, I'm so glad we jumped in to the podcast studio to record this, because I do think people were waiting to hear this week, some thoughts about the director's edition, and it would have been disappointing if we hadn't recorded this episode. So that's the great thing about not being in the physical studio, is that I'm able to text you and say,
you can do this on a whim. Yeah.
And we did. It was a complete whim. It was whimsical. And look, we're very interested in knowing what you think. So feel free, please, to go on our Inglorious Trek at Twitter, Inglorious Treksperts at Instagram, and of course on Facebook at Inglorious Treksperts as well. And if you enjoyed the show, except for people who were pissed off that I knocked Voyager briefly, it's fine. It's fine. Is 5 stars on Apple that let other people know to listen to the show. See, they'd rather me say something bad about Voyager than talk about politics. So there you go.
Right.
And I love Star Trek: The Motion Picture. This show is about celebrating love. And boy, I love that director's edition, man.
If only the internet would shed its animal passions and embrace total logic.
Exactly. Total logica. It's so funny. The woman who does the Culinary ceremony looked just like my grandma Edna, my late grandma Edna. And
her name was Edna.
I know.
Yeah, that's funny.
Look, even when I saw it in '79, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know Grandma Edna was in that Star Trek movie.
Wow.
So it was very, very interesting. So, So anyway, congratulations to you. Congratulations to the whole team. We'll be back next week with an all new episode. Thanks to Mark Rivera, who turned this episode around really quickly. He's been doing an amazing job. And, I don't think I gave him a special shout out for the Star Trek VI debate, but man, what you did with that episode, dude, fantastic. I said, have some fun with it. I gave him some cool clips. And he really, I don't know if you listened to it, Darren, he did a great job with the Star Trek VI episode.
I couldn't listen to it, too much PSD or PTSD.
Oh. Well, Steve Asbell was, I said, you want to debate Star Trek: The Motion Picture right here, right now? But he likes it. There's nothing to debate. Yeah. He likes it. You like it. We all like it. And, it's even got, what's great? I think I'd add an extra star. So if it was a 4-star movie before, 3.5-star movie before, now it's like a 4.5-star movie.
Nice.
Out of 4. So there you go. Thanks to Bill Ritter, Natalie Muscali, Peter Holmstrom, of course, and all of you who come back week after week and listen to this nonsense. So thank you. And of course, if you're a fan of the episode by any other name, I'll be beaming down to the Enterprise incidents. I don't think they liked it. I said, wow, it's just like that fanzine that James Van Heist did back in the 70s. And they're like, No. It's our own thing. It's not based on
totally different podcast altogether.
But they do a great podcast about the original. So if you're a fan of the original show, you should definitely listen to Scott. And in this case, this week, me on the show. I talked for quite a long time. 2 hours, man. More than 2 hours. That was crazy.
About Barbara Boucher.
I could go on a lot longer about Barbara Boucher, but and it wasn't Warren Stevens. So again, thank you, and we'll see you next week. And until then, on behalf of Darren Docterman, myself, Mark A. Altman, keep on trekking. Ingloriously, of course. There is no comparison.
There's a star beyond time, floating in space, waiting for you and me. Though we're planets apart, love is the bridge joining our galaxies. Come with me, we'll conquer the unknown, where no one's ever flown, to one star that will make our own, where the universe ends, our world begins, somewhere beyond the dawn. Come with me, we'll conquer the unknown, when no one's ever flown, to one star that will make our own, where the universe ends, our world begins, somewhere beyond the dawn.
This show is produced by Dean Devlin and Mark A. Altman and is an Electric Surge Network production.